Hello, and welcome to Friends and Authors Live, our weekly live show where we share tips and tricks and just our general author journey. I am Rosalinda Roman with my co-host and friend, A.K. Vyas, also known as Ash to his friends. And hi, I'm checking in from Tucson, Arizona.
Hello there, and a happy belated Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. That's actually why I'm here. My whole family, all three of my kids, and my husband and I are here in Tucson for an extended Mother's Day weekend, which has been fantastic.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it was good timing too, because I had just done the book launch a week ago, and I needed some downtime, and it was a totally last minute thing that we were able to all come together here in Tucson. I spent the morning hiking up in, I don't know if you've ever been to Tucson, but it is amazing. And they have the Catalina State Park and then just the Catalina foothills. You can go hiking, and I saw quail and lots of saguaros, and just, it was a really nice way to start the day. So,
yeah. I've been to Phoenix a fair amount, but so as you know, my little guy is obsessed with bugs. He wants to be an entomologist. And when we did a Google search, it said the top two universities for that in the world are University of Florida, number one, and
Go Gators!
And University of Arizona, number two. So he's like, do we know anybody there? I'm like, we actually know Rosalinda and Ziva. I'm sure by the time you're ready for college, that we could get a pretty good download of.
Get a good idea, yeah. Well, they definitely have unique bugs here. You know, this is the home of the scorpions and, just different bugs that you don't see anywhere else. But it's a really special place. When I had never been to Tucson until I was an adult, and when I first came here, I'm like, it just felt like a different world. The topography, the foliage, and the flora and fauna are like something you would see in a Dr. Seuss book, which I love. And by the way, we're doing this a little earlier. We had to pre-record because I have an obligation at our normal live time. And I noticed you've got a little light still coming in from the window.
Yeah, well, usually an hour later the sun sets here, and that's the thing people don't necessarily realize in the States is how far north Western Europe actually is. Like New York and Boston, like the northeast part of the States, they're across from like Spain and Portugal. Like, most of Western Europe is like, the level of Canada in terms of being north, right? So, as you get closer to the summer, it's lighter, much, much later.
It's very, very different kind of sunshine than we have right here in Tucson. All right, so let's get crack-a-lackin'. We got stuff to talk about. You've had a very busy time. I had my book launch, which was really great. My first book, Death Wounds, went to number one on the Hispanic American Literature Amazon bestseller list and women's crime fiction, and it made it up to number 3 in conspiracy thrillers. So that was awesome. And then the fifth book, which is the final one in the series that came out last week, it went all the way up to number 1. They put it as, Amazon actually kind of gave me a little boost because they put it as a hot new release, number 1 hot new release. So that was kind of cool. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, well, that happens.
Yeah. Plugging along. And speaking of putting the work in, you have been very busy getting to overhaul not only your website, but just kind of your overall online presence, right?
Yeah, so, our tech wizard, Danny King, lives here in Cologne, Germany, as I do, and he and his family are headed back to the States for good in about a month and a half. So while we have him here, he's helping me try to optimize a lot of stuff for GEO to try to make the business more profitable, show up more in searches, that sort of thing. And so, I've kind of been focused on that. And, while he's here, because, he can work on it and he can show me how to do stuff. And then, I'm leaving tomorrow for Munich for a week for a business trip. So hopefully catch up on some writing on the trains, right? We'll see.
That would be good. I know your readers are dying for anything you will write, so that's awesome. So let's look at some of. Are you willing to take a look at some of the stuff that you and Danny have been working on?
Sure, I can. But first, I just kind of wanted to put something into perspective you know, just something that I've been thinking of, and I was reminded of this weekend. I just wanted people to realize, whether they're authors, that this is the perception is this is such an easy, wonderful business, and you get to sit on your couch in your pajamas and write books, and you make money, and everything's good. There are aspects to freedom and things like that kind of thing, but it's actually in a lot of ways a very blue collar, competitive, tough industry. I mean, you're basically writing stories, and you're basically running a business, right? And so I just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to remind people a bit of perspective as to what the landscape is like in general. And so uh,
Do you want me to pull up that slide?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So this was something put out a while back by a very prominent author and mentor that has worked with both of us, and from Alaska, and he was also trying to make let people be grounded in terms of their expectations and know what's going on. For example, if you, I use Facebook for Facebook ads, but other than that, I really try to be on social media as little as possible, because in some ways, it's not the real world, right? Everyone puts their best
Right.
foot forward, and everyone sees the parties and the accomplishments and the achievements. They don't show the bad week where your boss was horrible, the kid was sick, and all these things usually, right?
Right.
And to a certain extent, you see that too in author sites. Substack is primarily an author site, that sort of thing. So just want to set expectations for folks who are having difficulty or early in their process. This is a lot of work, and it takes time. For example, the two main things that I wanted to point out here was 79% of books sell less than 100 copies in the entire lifetime.
Wow. That's over here. Yeah, that's crazy. The long tail. A large percentage of books, approximately 79%, sell fewer than 100 copies over their lifetime. Wow.
And most books don't sell. The first year is supposed to be the hot year where it's being pushed, whether it's trad with a big publisher behind you, or most books don't sell more than 500 copies. And even in the trad world, like if they give you a standard advance, you have to sell about twice as many books there, about 1,000 books to 500, depending on the price, for them to make their money on it as well. So when folks
That really does. That really puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. So as an indie, you have the luxury of time, because no one can take your book off the shelf after 6 months and say it's not going to work. And that was the case for me. The Eagle Feather, which is my best-selling book, I'd written it just for friends and family. I had no idea how to market it. I just wanted to leave something for my little kid to read someday. And then obviously, we met folks in the 20 books group, and they taught me how to market. And a year and a half later, it's my biggest earning book series, right? So I don't think a trad publisher would have given me the luxury of that time, space, and runway to get to where it was. Right? So
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because my book launch, as book launches go, I just mentioned it did really well. It's still like a disappointment, because it's not thousands of books, it's hundreds of. I mean, I had thousands of copies go out, but that was for free. But the paid version of which books are going out, it's within sometimes dozens, sometimes 100, but it's not thousands like you dream of, I think. And so it's really helpful to hear you say that, having been there, and you're the veteran here, so you've seen how this goes. And yeah, I think there's kind of this misnomer that it's like a big flash in the pan, and you're going to have this big sparkly launch, and that's not really how it goes.
Well, it does go like that for some people. Some people strike white lightning the first book. It does happen, but it's hard to count on. There is proven methodology of, and I'm sure you're sick of me repeating this to you, but write good books, learn to market well. That's all you need.
Yeah.
You don't need to write a perfect book. You don't need to write an excellent book. You can't write a bad book. You need to write a
Yeah.
good book and learn how to market well. And
Yeah.
that's how you can do this full time, right?
Yeah,
But-
yeah. Just looking at this, it's really interesting, talking about that percentage that doesn't, sell more than, what does it say? Over 95% of books sell fewer than 1,000 copies. And that's, and over here it says, for self-published authors, the average is much lower, often cited as fewer than 250 copies in a lifetime.
Yeah, I saw a statistic somewhere recently that said if you are grossing over $2,500 a month as an author, you're in the top 1 or 2% of all
Wow.
authors.
That's
Right?
amazing.
So just for folks who are early on and struggling, I was there. I didn't make any money for years, and I still wouldn't have made any money had it not been for a fortuitous meeting with Steve Higgs at Amsterdam the night before a conference. Right. So I just wanted to give folks some perspective, depending on where they are, because there are people out there who would look at me and say, oh, well, he's making money and he's on the cusp of doing this full time and I could aspire to that. And then I look at people who are 7, 8-figure authors and think, oh, I'm just a tadpole in a big ocean, compared
Right.
to some of our friends. Right. So it's
Right.
I hope to shed a bit of perspective for folks on
That's
what this can be like.
That's excellent. And it's also excellent that even in that sentence you mentioned that there are people that are making, 6, 7, 8 figures. So it is possible. And I think that, not to just poo-poo it and say, well, we're indies and we can't. We know personally independent authors who are making excellent living at this. So don't give up.
Exactly, and put it in perspective, and keep grinding is kind of what I hope to convey with that. The other thing, and this will lead to a couple of points, is I wanted to talk about cost, and obviously, sometimes when I run Facebook ads, you have readers or people responding to the ads, and they like the ads or they leave comments. And I think the perception, once again, is that if you're a successful author, you're trad published, you have this big agency behind you, and you're not a dad who drinks too much coffee writing in his spare time, right? So you get comments like, when are you going to make this into a movie? Why isn't this an audiobook yet? Why isn't this in Barnes and Noble yet? And so you kind of on the one hand you're flattered because
Yeah.
they're assuming you are actually have all these resources behind you, which hopefully means the quality of your book is professional and likable.
Right.
and entertaining.
Right.
On the other hand, the cost and a lot of authors, independent authors, and even very very successful authors, deal with this. And I wanted to touch on that. For example, given the statistic that we talked about before of 79% of books don't sell 100 copies. And if your book, it's an ebook, it's $5. That's not that much money, right? So,
Right.
and if you think about the cost of putting out a book, it varies. There's different ways to do it, but if you go one way, you could write your book. You could pay for a developmental editor. I think that's $1,500, a couple $1,000s. Let's say you have a 60,000 word book, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you get it a cover, all the covers maybe cost $200-$300. And if you get it made into an audiobook, I think that can cost a couple $1,000s.
It can.
All the expenses add up, and so you're thinking, okay, book one of a series cost me say $4,500. Then there's ways to do it a lot cheaper. Like my cost is a fraction of that, right? But I had to learn that, right?
Right.
But that's a lot of pressure. That given the numbers, if you're in the hole, $4,500 a book, and that leads to the next topic, which is your favorite topic. But I just
Here we go. AI.
Exactly, and people ask why AI, and once again, I don't use AI for any of the writing or the artistic
Right.
creation. But in terms of a translation, or if you want to get something edited or something like that, or people use apps like Midjourney for Facebook ads or for covers and that sort of thing, you could reduce the cost of putting a book out from, say, $4,500 to a tenth of that,
Right.
which is significantly less pressure.
It's significant. I mean, if you think about I've been a published author since I did my memoir in 2022, but for my fiction, it started last January. So for 15 months, I've been selling books. I have 5 published books in the series, and I haven't made what you just said, $4,000. I've made maybe half that in my whole lifetime of my series. And so can you imagine, and that's me writing 5 books, if it's somebody's first book and they're just getting known, and I have a certain amount of recognition because I was in broadcasting and I have some of my own followers, so that there's something to be said for that. But like, in the end, yeah, it's very discouraging, and I can see why. If you can find a way to bring that cost down so that you actually can make a living, I can't begrudge someone that. That's the difference between becoming an author who makes a living writing and being an author who's constantly just writing and going deeper in the hole, and nobody wants to do that.
Well, I think it also depends on the transition, because most of our successful indie author friends didn't start out simply as writers. A few did, but most had other jobs, and it was a hobby that they built the side business until it became their primary business, right?
Right.
And so the cost aspect of it was definitely. And the other thing is, I absolutely believe it boils down to write a good book and learn to market well. You don't know which of your series is going to take off. If you do it long enough, you will have success if you persevere, because you'll get better at writing and you'll learn your genre and you'll learn your tropes and you'll learn all these things. But for example, if I think of 3 of our friends who are 6- and 7-figure authors, one of them, it was her 3rd or 4th series that's finally making money. Another very prominent author, if you look at his first series, it was not well received at all. And so part of this is, yes, you have to be an artist, you have to be creative. You also have to have a thick skin, because you're going to put yourself out there, and it literally could be your 3rd or 4th series. And some people, and it's very logical, so I wrote these 4 books, I haven't made any money, so I'm going to write another 4 in tell another story. And
Right.
the folks who persevere, at some point, maybe they get lucky, and it was their first book, or maybe there was one lady we met at 20 Books in Vegas. Now this I don't think I could have done, but she wrote 50 books and made no money.
Yeah.
And now
I know. At what point do you say to yourself, okay, I wrote, like, I would say probably 10 for me. Can you imagine? And just say, at that point, I'm going to go get a job and do something different, because obviously I'm not a good writer. But like you're saying, that's obviously not true. It's not necessarily, they don't necessarily correlate.
No. So once again, that's where the cost aspect might be able to keep you in the game longer, maybe more shots on goal, right? If you can do that. So then the other thing, and I'm actually really happy to talk to you, because you're a very high character, moral person. So I have a bit of a conundrum. I don't know how to think about something, so I obviously value your opinion on this. So once again, it has to do with your favorite topic, AI, right? So I'm going to give you 2 things that I've come across in the past week.
Okay.
On different ends of the spectrum when it comes to AI. Okay. The first, and both of these things really annoy me, and I'm trying to figure out, do I have a right to be annoyed here, or should I just get off my high horse? Right? Because for the most part, you know me, I'm a laissez-faire, capitalist, free markets kind of guy. Right? So
right.
If I'm annoyed by something, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of a fuddy-duddy these days. But no,
Unlikely.
So
Because you're one of the first to adopt things. You're very, you're willing to be cutting edge. You're trying new things. So I don't. My guess is no, but I'm all ears.
I'm just curious as to what you think. Okay, first one end of the spectrum. So we have a mutual author friend who is. I'm not the cutting edge of anything. He's the cutting edge of video ads for Facebook, TikTok, to sell books.
Yeah.
And he is not only a talented author, he's an incredibly generous person because he's developed this methodology with marketing with video, book ads with video, that's made him six figures over the past 3 years. He's a six-figure author because of his skill at marketing with videos. And he's openly shared this at conferences, and he's shared it with his friends. I send him a message on WhatsApp, and he responds immediately with a question I want answered. He's just a very generous guy.
Person. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's very open about the fact that, once again, talking to the cost thing, he doesn't have a Hollywood studio behind him. If he wants to make a 30-second video ad for one of his books, he uses AI. He uses one of the engines and one of the illustrators and that sort of thing. So he put out a series of ads for his book series that were spectacular, like 30-second video ads that looked like a Hollywood studio animated them. And he got all sorts of negative feedback and snarky comments from what I call the reptilian brain of humanity collectively, which is the Facebook comment section or TikTok, etc. Who were saying, well, if you use, this is clearly AI for your marketing videos, so clearly your books are written by AI as well.
Right.
Which is
interesting.
Which is harsh, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's not just harsh; it's ignorant. Yeah. And that's, I think, and I try not to use AI at all. I now use, my husband makes our Facebook ads and uses Midjourney, and my son gets so upset. He's like, why don't you just let me draw it? Or something, like in his mind, why are we using AI when everything else, I don't use it? So I wrestle with this all the time. And the reality is, when you are an author and you are writing your books and creating your books yourself, and then it's a different thing to try to get people to discover your books. And that's the tricky part. And so if he's doing all of these things for the author community, trying to support other authors and writing his own books, using that, like, who am I to say you can't do that?
And the other thing too is, if you can definitively prove that you wrote the books, because ChatGPT went public in November of 2022. That was when AI tools were first available to the general public. The first books in his series were published well ahead of that.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no way he can definitively prove he wrote the book. Not that he should have to prove any of it.
I was going to say, the fact that he even has to think about trying to prove it is kind of where we are now, and disheartening.
Right. So it seems to be, there's somewhat of a witch hunt. So that bothered me. I'm not a complete proponent of AI by any stretch of the imagination. However, that bothered me that he had to deal with that. So that leads me to my second question, which is actually, now I'm going to come back on your side of the fence.
Okay.
So, as an indie author, as you know, you're running your own business, right? So some of the things the topics I bring up and I talk about, I do research them. I try to read everything I can get my hands on about what's cutting edge or what's going on, or how folks are marketing or reading, or better techniques to tell a better story. I do listen to podcasts just to try to improve my craft. This is going to become my full-time profession, right?
Right.
So I think where I'm at on AI right now is, as you said, it's a tool that authors can use to help. But where I think I draw the line is deliberate deception. Right? And by that I mean, if you're in a business where you're misleading your customers, knowingly. For me, that's a red line, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Personally, right? So, but it doesn't even have to be some horrible, nefarious type of thing. And this is really what I want your opinion on. So I'm irritated by something, and I want your opinion on it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there's a indie author podcast that I was listening to earlier this week, and it's somewhat similar to our format in that they have a female and a male host, and they discuss pertinent topics for the indie author community and that sort of thing. Okay, and the
Okay.
content is actually pretty spot on and useful in my opinion. So the topic was getting through a kind of a writing rut, like a writer's block, that sort of thing,
Okay.
and techniques for getting through that, which is an interesting topic because it's something that we absolutely face. Halfway through the project, your mind just goes blank and you don't know what to write next,
Yeah.
right? So an interesting.
I literally, like what do you do? Like I have a yoga trapeze, which is this funky sling in the door, and I hang upside down, and I like you got to move your body, or you got to do something like that. For me,
Yeah, I'd probably kill myself trying to do that, but
probably.
we could talk about that in the future.
I'll have to show a picture of that one of these days.
I don't think anyone wants to see me on a yoga trapeze, but so okay, so there's a guy and a girl on this podcast, right?
Okay.
And so I'm going to share with you some comments that they made, okay?
Okay.
And you're going to be like, so what, Ash, right?
Okay.
So the guy says that you know that frustrating feeling when you're halfway through a project and your mind just goes blank and you're just kind of like staring at the screen. And
Yeah.
the girl, the lady, responds, of course, I've been there. And so then he suggests,
Yeah.
well, we can do the standard kinds of things. We can do yoga. We can go for a walk. We can have some coffee. And then she responds, yes, but not all those things work, especially coffee, because when I drink coffee, I get jittery. Okay. Which is reasonable,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
For sure.
And then they talked about interns and how AI is potentially like a really industrious but clueless intern, and they laughed about all of these things.
Okay.
So these are all reasonable comments, and those
Yeah.
of us who write for a living and artistic folks can relate to this, right? Because I think that's kind of why you listen to a podcast, is people have different levels of experiences, but you want to learn someone's perspective. I want to learn Rosalinda's perspective. Maybe someone's interested in my perspective, my views,
Right.
my experience, sort of thing. Here's the thing. They're not human beings.
What?
It's an AI hosted podcast. Both the male and female hosts of the podcast are AI.
Stop it. Really?
Yes. And I'm
Talking about like drinking coffee.
So I'm like, wait a minute. You're not drinking coffee. You're not even breathing. You're not even human. You are
Ash! Stop.
impersonating human being authors talk about the process of writing, and the points you're making are reasonable, but wasn't it?
They're reasonable for human beings who have lived it, who have lived experiences in bodies.
I'm irritated by this. Like, as you know, I kind of think of myself as a Texan abroad, and I live in Germany, and you can't get good Mexican food here. I'm spoiled. It's not like it's New Mexico or San Antonio. And so if a guy gets on a podcast, because I'm always looking at cooking podcasts, he's talking about,
Yeah.
hey, well, this is how you make green chili enchiladas. This, add this, and this is how it tastes. I'm all ears. But then if I find out, wait, you've never had a green chili enchilada. You've actually never had enchilada. You've even not got a breath of oxygen. You are a bot impersonating a human being. And if they said at the beginning of the show, by the way, our hosts are AI generated.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
it totally be. But now it's to the point where this is actually an interesting podcast in terms of content, but I'm so irritated by this that I don't want to listen to it anymore because I feel like, was I deceived? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I would say. I mean, one of my core fundamental principles that I believe matters and will change the world if we all did this is give credit where credit is due and seek consent every time, right? Credit where credit is due. Where this fits in is you have to say, it's fine. Somebody wants to have a show with AI hosts, then they should say every show, by the way, this is an AI hosted podcast. That's it. And then it's my choice as the consumer to do what I want with it, right? I want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. I want to, I want to laugh at the fact that they don't have bodies, but they're pretending to drink coffee. Like, that's up to me. But you take away my right to decide if you don't clearly label it and identify what we're looking at.
Well, here's the thing. If you actually look at the names of the hosts, they're kind of a play on words.
Oh,
you
are
could
they?
kind of infer after the fact that it wasn't obvious to me, and maybe I'm just an idiot, but
Okay.
that it was AI. But then once you figured it out,
So do they look like people?
no, there's no video.
Oh, it's audio. Okay.
Audio
Okay.
only. It's audio only.
Wow.
So-
Wow, Ash, that's crazy.
And for those of you who are worried, I can vouch that Rosalinda is a real person. I've done writing sprints with her at 6 in the morning.
I brought him green chili, so that means I'm real.
I had a whiskey
And
with
that
her.
I've actually tasted with my real body.
I've had whiskeys with her husband, and I've played beach
Yeah.
volleyball with her kids. She's a
Yeah.
real person and a real author, and not my colleague here is not a bot impersonating a female author.
That's hilarious, Ash. You crack me up. Well, I mean, ultimately, because I have said for a long time that part of why I really enjoy live streaming and why I think it matters that we are having a video presence now is to confirm that we're real and we're not an AI bot. But I kind of said that almost facetiously. I didn't realize that literally our competition is is not real humans. Well.
And I would have thought that at some point, if you do that, you would have, if I get to be too high maintenance and you replace me with AI, I would hope that you would be like, well, Ash was just unreasonable, and the new host is much better. By the way, he's AI.
He's AI.
Right. We replaced Ash with AI.
I promise you, Ash, I promise you, if I replace you with AI, I promise I will identify that fact to our viewers. Okay? So at least they'll know. Well, and you know what it makes me think, it actually makes me think of when I was in broadcasting, you would be plugging along, anchoring a show, and the viewers loved you, the ratings were good, and then all of a sudden management changed their mind. They were going for the new flavor of the month or whatever, and they would bring in a new anchor, and they would never say what happened to the previous one. They would never say, did she die? Did she, just get canned? What happened? And it just was so off-putting and upsetting because you get comfortable with what you think and then all of a sudden it changes, which I understand. Life is about change, so I can't, but it does make you think okay, but don't you think that the people that are watching, I like to treat people that are watching, that are taking the time to watch my show or taking the time to read my books, I like to believe that they are intelligent beings like we are, and they want to be treated with respect. And for me, it is disrespectful to not be clear about what I'm really up to, what I'm doing. I'm not saying you have to know all my business, but I'm saying, let's give some disclosure and be upfront.
And to be fair, the cost aspects I was talking about earlier, it's probably it's probably a lot cheaper to use AI hosts. And also, to be fair, I mean, you're a professional broadcaster, and for whatever reason, people tolerate me. But it's hard for some people who are introverts who don't want to be doing a podcast. I get all that.
Yeah.
But I'm just irritated because it wasn't declared.
Right.
And
That's it.
they're
That's it.
impersonating human beings, right? So.
That's it. It's the lack of disclosure, period. I think that's the main thing. Oh, well, we're going to have to continue this conversation at another time. I think that's fascinating. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm especially glad you brought it up, because then we can take this opportunity to be very clear that we are real humans, and we hope you'll continue watching our Real Human show, Friends and Authors Live. It's every Tuesday, and we're not perfect. We'll make mistakes. We'll say ums and ahs. We won't cut out all the imperfect parts, but we'll be honest, at least, I think. I'd like to believe, don't you think, Ash?
Well, you talked about beings. We are beings.
With bodies.
With bodies.
For better or worse. Right, exactly. I love it. Who write books. All right, well, everyone check in again next week. Put comments in there when you're here live with us, because we can always see them in the studio, and we appreciate you being here. Let us know what you think. I mean, do you have any problem with a show that does not tell you that they're AI? I mean, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe we're overreacting. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Until next week, this is Friends and Authors Live with A.K. Vias, and I'm Rosalinda Roman. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Maybe. I don't know how to...